I now invite His Excellency Kokou Kpayedo, Chair of Delegation of Togo. Your Excellency.
Mr. President, delegates, I'd like to begin by congratulating you, Mr. President, on your outstanding election as President of this 74th regular session of the General Assembly. I assure you that you have the full support of my country, and I wish you every success in implementing the priorities of your mandate. I also wish to take this opportunity to thank your predecessor, Ms. Maria Fernanda Espinosa, for the quality of her work and for the progress achieved by our organization throughout her mandate. Moreover, I wish to, on behalf of the Togolese people, renew my profound gratitude to the United Nations Secretary-General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for his unstinting commitment to peace and security in a world marked by multifaceted forms of upheaval. Mr. President, multilateralism and the pooling of efforts and experience today is no longer an option available to the community of states, but rather a crucial imperative if we are to achieve our goals. Today, the responsibilities of our organization are increasingly numerous and its challenges more multidimensional and complicated. To act more effectively, we must therefore realize that there is no alternative to collective action and to solidarity. Evidently, the scale and urgency of these new challenges, fueled and perpetuated by wars, socio-political crises, poverty, and the effects of climate change, call on us to wake up and to take specific, concerted, and pragmatic action. That is why I welcome the theme chosen for this session of our General Assembly, which is galvanizing multilateral efforts for poverty eradication, quality education, climate action, and inclusion. This responds perfectly to current concerns and reflects the values that underpin our wholehearted observance of the United Nations Charter. Mr. President, in adopting several years ago the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, we resolutely committed to ensuring that this program, which is today the most useful tool that we have to progress the well-being of our populations, is not just one more program. And here I wish to reiterate my country's full support for the initiatives and mechanisms aimed to implement the various strategic plans to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Indeed, we have made enormous efforts at a national level in order to reduce poverty and to guarantee that no one is left behind by 2030. To that end, and in accordance with the UN 2030 Agenda and the African Union 2063 Agenda, as well as the 2020 program of ECOWAS, my country has a national development program 2018 to 2022 in line with our emergence agenda. This is based on the essential bases of development: economic, social, and environmental. Through the three strategic axes of our National Development Plan, Togo hopes to become a middle-income country that is economically, socially, and democratically robust and stable, with solidarity and openness for the rest of the world. This is already reflected in efforts that aim to establish a strategic centre of excellence and a first-class business hub in the West African sub-region, as well as in the development of poles for agricultural transformation and transformation in the manufacturing and extractive industries. In short, the National Development Plan is based on integrating the 17 SDGs, and it aims to change the structure of the Togolese economy to ensure robust, sustainable, resilient growth that creates jobs and boosts the well-being of our citizens. Thus, beyond the swift implementation of road, port, airport and farming infrastructure, my country is decisively pursuing its education policy to ensure free primary education. We've done that since 2008. We have also been rolling out a school meals program as well as a school ashore health insurance program that 2 million school pupils have already benefited from. And this has had a great impact on school enrollment rates, particularly for young girls. Moreover, through our government strategy for education for 2014 to 2025, Togo intends to ensure universal primary education by 2022 and extend preschool education in rural and poor areas. The ultimate aim of this is to respond to the requirements for quality education in Togo and to significantly reduce illiteracy rates. Mr. President, at the time at which we were adopting this ambitious program in 2015, we were well aware that achieving our commitments in development would depend on the ability of the international community to galvanize the necessary funding. It's therefore crucial that we further promote international cooperation and solidarity in order to establish innovative partnerships that will deliver progress at an international level. And here we pay tribute to the Addis Ababa Plan of Action on Financing for Development. This remains the best suited framework to mobilize financial resources and therefore progress in achieving the SDGs. It's therefore urgent that we implement this plan of action and fully harness the benefits of its mechanisms. In this regard, particular attention should be granted to the least developed countries and to all vulnerable countries that are sidelined in international trade. We should seize on multilateralism as an opportunity for active economic cooperation and international trade cooperation that would deliver hope for the human community. I therefore welcome the continued efforts that we see in the African Union and in regional communities on our continent since the adoption of the 2063 agenda, which aims to ensure structural transformation within Africa. My country here welcomes the launch by the African Union on the 30th of May in Niamey of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is one of the 14 flagship projects of the UA's 2063 agenda. It aims to speed up industrialization in Africa and increase intra-African trade, as well as establish quality infrastructure. Moreover, a single African air transport market has been established. This responds to a pressing need to unify the internal African air transport market. We are particularly working on the aviation industry and tourism industry and working on improving connectivity between the member states of that initiative. At a sub-regional level, we also hail the adoption of the principle for a single currency within the economic community of West African states as a significant driver of integration. Mr. President, beyond the legal framework required to promote good governance, access to health and education and well-being, the issue of climate change and the protection of the environment represents a major concern for my country. Indeed, it falls to the entire international community to show how the issue of climate change is indivisible from that of health and sanitation, fight against poverty and human development. We believe, therefore, that we should be guaranteeing funds to assist the most vulnerable countries in order to preserve their biodiversity. Thus, it is crucial that the international community find suitable solutions for issues related to climate change, and here my country wishes to reiterate its support and commitment to the Paris Agreement. In this regard, we welcome the holding of the Climate Action Summit, which preceded this debate. We hope that the pledges made throughout the summit will make it possible to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and to ensure full carbon neutrality by 2050. My country insists on the need to earmark greater finance for the Green Climate Fund and to better assist the least polluting countries and those that are most exposed to climate change to find the ways and means to address it. Mr. President, our current world is facing an extremely volatile security situation. The persistence of hotbeds of tension, particularly in Africa and in the Middle and Near East, as well as emerging issues such as terrorism, violent extremism, natural disasters, and climate change, temptations towards nuclear proliferation, all endanger international peace and security, without which none of our development action will be successful. Thus, my country, imbibed with the values of peace and peaceful coexistence, believes that we have everything to gain from working together and decisively to curb all of these crises. 2019 has been particularly trying for several countries, marked by the existential fear of the terrorist threat. Recurrent attacks around the world prove to us on a daily basis that this rampant evil remains omnipresent, and it means that we must be permanently on our guard. The West African region has not been spared. Indeed, we have seen several attacks in Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Benin, etc. Togo, due to its proximity with its neighbouring countries that have been struck by the terrorist scourge, understands the scale of the threat and remains on high alert. Today, the Togolese response to the terrorist threat is part of a preventive and proactive approach. Thus, Togo requested the expertise of the United Nations Counterterrorism Committee in order to assist us in assessing the risks posed by violent extremism. The visit of the committee to Lomé from the 22nd to the 24th of July 2019 allowed the committee to make recommendations and assess priority requirements for technical assistance. And here we thank the United Nations for their assistance that is greatly appreciated by us. My country remains convinced that the spread of the scourge of terrorism means that we need to bolster international cooperation, because its complex nature means that it cannot be addressed individually by states. Rather, it should be addressed through harmonized action. Aware of the need for regional cooperation, the Togolese government supports the Accra Initiative that has been jointly undertaken with Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Mali and Niger since September 2017. The aim of this is indeed to share and harmonise our approaches in tackling the terrorist threat. To that end, it's crucial that we find sustainable funding for the G5 Sahel. This represents an exemplary framework for cooperation in counterterrorism in the West African sub-region. The delay that we have seen in operationalizing this force is extremely damaging to peace and security in Africa. In this regard, we join in the numerous calls for international mobilization to allow this force to become operational and to eradicate this pervasive evil within our countries. My country welcomes the reform of the United Nations Peace and Security Pillar and fully supports actions that are taken by the UN Secretary-General aimed at increasing the effectiveness of peacekeeping operations through more precise mandates and through collaboration with regional and sub-regional organizations. Nonetheless, we question the reductions in funding earmarked to these operations, while challenges to peacekeeping and peace building appear to be increasingly complex. Togo is one of the main troop contributing countries, and it therefore reiterates its commitment to serve wherever peace is threatened, while we fully support the zero-tolerance policy for sexual abuse and the Kigali Principles. Mr. President, we cannot overstate the fact that nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction continue to pose serious threats to international peace and security. My country focuses in its foreign policy on general and full disarmament, and we have always advocated in favour of nuclear technology for civilian purposes. On the back of this choice, the Togolese government has just adopted on the 7th of August a bill on the safe, secure and peaceful use of nuclear technology, aware of its positive applications, particularly in health, agriculture, industry, etc. Mr. President, international migratory flows are becoming more intense, diverse, and today pose another great challenge. Due to the increasing economic inequalities, increasing numbers of people are leaving their countries of origin to find safer or better outlooks elsewhere. This migratory phenomenon often becomes a tragedy and a source of sorrow for populations and governments. The international community must therefore find mechanisms to collectively manage this situation and ensure more effective cooperation. My country therefore welcomes the adoption by the General Assembly on the 19th of December 2018 of the International Migration on Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration that was adopted at the International Conference in Marrakesh on the 10th and 11th of December 2018. This historic pact, although it's not legally binding, is a useful roadmap for a more effective management of this great issue of our time. Mr. President, our common destiny means that we must defeat any temptations towards isolated action, and we must work together to address poverty and all of the other ills afflicting humanity in order to build more fairer societies, bolstering multilateralism and drawing daily inspiration from the African proverb that says that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Thank you.
I thank the Chair of Delegation of Togo,